He does have an howitzer for an arm and may be one of the best overall athletes in this class. I'm Crissy Froyd from the Draft Network, here to give you my breakdown of Malik Willis, who is one of the most highly touted prospects coming into the season and has since become one of the most polarizing, with a lot of questions coming into play on just who he is as a passer after he started off the season very well, throwing the ball before regressing and never really being able to convince us again with the right amount of consistency as a passer. Willis had a very successful high school career, originally attending Westlake High School in Atlanta, Georgia, before transferring to ROSWELL in Roswell, Georgia, very much showing just how much of a dual threat he could be, passing for over 2,500 yards, rushing for over 1,000 with 37 total touchdowns. Willis started off his career at Auburn, where he was unable to get in as the starter, then transferring to Liberty as a result, coming to play under head coach Hugh Freeze, earned the 2020 Dudley Award, which is presented to the best player in the state of Virginia, and has really just taken off from there. In looking at accuracy, which is arguably the most important trait that a quarterback could have, Willis finished out the season with a completion percentage of just over 61%, leaving some to be desired. His last game against Army was quite a disaster. He finished it out with about a 51% completion percentage. And there's a lot of things that really go into this. Sometimes he throws hot, he puts a little bit too much zip on the ball and puts the receiver in a position where they're the one that has to make a play on the ball or else it's going to fall incomplete. Definitely could use some more touch on some of these throws that look more like fastballs than anything else. And some of the completion percentage issues come from the fact that he just has this big gunslinger mentality. And this can be an advantageous thing when it comes to making the big time throw when you're really trying to push the ball down the field. And then sometimes it results in interception, which is something that we have seen. And the quarterback at times should just take the shorter option, give his receiver a chance to get upfield. Malik Willis doesn't do that a lot, and therefore it kind of affects his completion percentage. Some of his shortcomings as a passer played a role into his 12 interceptions, and he had 3 games with 3 interceptions each against lackluster secondaries, which is where those red flags really came to light for us. He's placed some footballs pretty well into tight windows, but he lacks consistency in quite literally every single category as a passer, and that's something he's going to have to show in showcases like the Senior Bowl after the season. And just in terms of raw physical and athletic ability, there's not much that Willis can't do. He's a guy with some speed who can break ankles and can use his athleticism and toughness to get things done on the ground. Not necessarily a huge guy, listed at 6'1", 215 pounds, but he does have an howitzer for an arm and may be one of the best overall athletes in this class. His ability to go off script and to use that mobility when there's no longer anything on the pass is really good. He has a long of 70 yards this season and several other numbers in that ballpark, and that's credit to him, not always his receivers on the yards after the catch. And as far as just getting in there and getting the job done, Willis does fit that description, and I think that shows in the tape and the way that he's willing to run and use his legs and really just do a lot on the ground. He's not a player that you hear about as far as being injured all the time. Didn't really struggle with that much this season. The only thing that really came about was a foot injury against North Texas, but he was able to return and it didn't seem to hinder him throughout the rest of the season. Willis does seem to understand the offensive scheme that he plays in very well and has obviously seen a lot of different things, transferring twice in the middle of high school, transferring twice in the middle of college. But he sometimes still doesn't get the ball out fast enough and sometimes chooses to try to do something heroic, whether that be with his legs or on a 50-50 throw. And things can go bad whenever he could have just made a better decision on a shorter throw or just not leaving the pocket. And as far as processing time goes, he could stand to speed up just a hair, and that's something that maybe will improve with some development at the next level. Intangibly speaking, Willis has elevated this Liberty team to new heights with the spark that he brings just as an overall athlete and competitor. His it factor could best be characterized as an almost magician-type ability to elude defenders. A play is simply never over until it is over when you have someone like Willis carrying the ball, and I would encourage you to look at the tape on just how impossible some of those scenarios look like that he still manages to get out of. Like I said, he could still stand to improve as a passer, but as far as an athlete goes, you really couldn't ask for more from a player like this. So in conclusion, Willis sometimes tries to play hero ball, and time is only going to tell if he's going to be able to develop as a passer the way that he needs to at the NFL level. He's not a first-year NFL starter, but if he can make the improvements he needs to throwing the ball, he can become a starter down the line in the right scheme that likes to use a toolsy quarterback like him, or can become a high-end backup or a player that comes into rotation. This is a guy that I see coming off the board between the 5th and 10th quarterback, not as high as he was projected in the beginning, and I give him a 37 out of 50 overall. Well, thank you guys for watching. Be sure to like this video and subscribe to the Draft Network for draft coverage all year long, and hit us up in the comments section with your thoughts on Malik Willis.